Giuseppe seat, otherwise he has to stay up. Surely this mountain that is not a mountain, it's a volcano. You might know this volcano is one of the most dangerous all over the world. Unfortunately, it is still active. Unfortunately, it is probably the most dangerous. You'll find almost the same structure as it was during the Roman Empire. A town that got freezed the Graham Vesuvio of 15,000 years ago. There was a tuffacious and one tear just fell on top of the Vesuvio, giving us the fertility of the soils. Of course, where we were before is right behind this building. On the right side you see the town of Castellammare di Stabia, and today it is enough.
Bacetto. My friend.
Surrounding mainly faces of football players. In that shop they were selling also the face of Maradona, which is probably the best, not probably, sure.
Perché prima non volevi andare?
The city is very ancient because it was founded at the very end of the 7th century before Christ by natives. But to have a real town planning as the one that you can see on this map, we have to wait to the 3rd century BC when Pompeii was occupied by the Romans. So what did the Romans do? They built two large straight roads running from east to west. One is here, one is on the top, cut perpendicularly by many alleyways. Pompeii is made up of hundreds of alleys. In this way, what did they make? What did they do? They made a grid where each building had its precise place and each area had its precise destination. For example, there was an domed place since the prehistoric era. Maybe, you know, they had no memories of a volcanic activity over here. That's why the morning of the 24th of August 79 AD, they were completely took by surprise. So what happened? That morning, they saw first a big black cloud flutter up to the mountain. The day after, the giant cup of solidified lava exploded with such a big, terrifying violence due to the thrust of the gases. And it flew in the air, where it was crumbled and transformed into ash and lapilli. Lapilli are small stones of 20 millimeters in size. They are pretty small and pretty light, very similar to the pumice stones. They last a couple of days. In less than 48 hours, the town was buried under more than 20 feet, 6 or 7 meters of ash and volcanic debris. For sure, Pompeii was abandoned, and the town fell into oblivion for more than 17 centuries. So it was buried during the 7th century, in 79 AD. It came to the light just by accident when? In 1748. So what happened? Very well. It's nearly 38 degrees. Then you should be helped by your imagination. Why? Because, for example, if you took a walk in this town 2,000 years ago, you would have not seen the walls design. You wouldn't. Why not? Because, as you can see, everything was covered in plaster. Door. The walls were covered with a thick layer of plaster, and then, as you can see along this passageway, will be back here in a bit. You can see the colors left. Especially the private houses were completely decorated with lovely frescoes. We lost a lot of plaster, as you can see. Why? Because an eruption is always preceded by strong earthquakes. So the ground was strongly shaken and the plaster fell off. Now from here, one of the original roads of the town from the top. Immediately. Why? Because the eruption lasted 4 days and it was made up of 3 different phases. So during the first phase, what happened? They saw a smoking mountain, completely scared because they were superstitious guys. Maybe they thought, okay, what did we do, you know, to deserve such a big punishment? And they ran away. But some of them didn't realize what was going on. So they took refuge at home and they died of choking, suffocation, because they breathed not only the ash but also the poisonous gases coming out from the volcanic chamber. On 10,000 people, the archaeologists found so far less than 1,000 skeletons. Maybe when the little oven came to the light, they realized, okay, that was a bakery for sure. So in other words, in Pompeii, there were all kinds of shops. There were laundries, bakeries, blacksmiths, hotels, bed and breakfast, and they had something like a McDonald's already. When my college was there, there's a Roman McDonald's, we used to have a light lunch in one of the wine bars of the town. What you see down there is not an arch, that is a gate. The town was surrounded by 7 gates. That is one of them. The road is the original one. The sidewalks is new. There are a few sidewalks came to us. They have been reconstructed before COVID, so they are new. Let me show you the candy pizza margherita. Do you know why? I was so surprised when I knew that. It was unbelievable to me. In Europe, there were no tomatoes. I thought we were the originators of the tomatoes, but the tomatoes will be imported from Southern America. So no Columbus, no tomatoes. But of course, yes, we had to wait a long time to order a spaghetti with fresh tomato. But they made, bread, of course. And in there, what you're looking at is this, just the upper part of a millstone. But as you can see, the millstones were divided in two sections. The mill and the flour came out from the bottom. In the back of the bakery, there was a storage where they stored the grain, the bread that they made the daily. Why? Because you know what? Mrs. Pompeii couldn't cross the road in order to buy bread in there. She could not. Why not? Because this was not a shop. This was a factory, the place where they made bread. Then in the morning, as you can see on the book, there were some guys like peddlers. They came in here with big baskets and they deliver bread to the markets, the McDonald's, the shops, the restaurants of the town. So bottega in English is a workshop. I mean, this was not only the place where they sold something, it was also the place where they made something. Because Pompeii was plenty of artisans and craftsmen. So what did they do? Let's imagine that there was a family here, they had their own business. Then where did they live? Above the shops. Okay. There was a staircase and you can see the halls that supported the second story. So they lived up there in a small loft. You can imagine that up there they had not running water, they had not a place where they could have a bath, they had not a real toilet. For example, as a toilet, what did they have? Just a chamber, hot. What did they do then?
Dump it out there.
Yes, they dumped it into the streets. So the streets were. But you remember, I told you we were small people. Look at the size of the sidewalks. So they built big sidewalks for small people. Why? They were built on purpose in order, to keep the citizens as far as they could from the poo, because the streets were very dirty and smelling. Left you're looking at was a private house. So that was the front door, a little corridor that led the family into this courtyard with a marble basin. What was it for? Before that, the Roman aqueduct was built. The people in Pompeii need to catch rainwater. So let's imagine that 2,000 years ago we would have been in the shade. Of course, there was a roof on the top. The point is that it was not a flat roof, it was a sloping roof with an opening just in the center. So they catch rainwater in that basin, which is, as you can see, not so deep. So what did they do? They were not very good geologists, but brilliant engineers. They built underneath a huge cistern where the water was channeled, and on the top where you see the metal grid, there was what? A marble well from where they could then take the water. To the left and to the right of the courtyard, there were small bedrooms. What you're looking in there is a very typical Roman bedroom, so small. Why? Because they had not so many furnitures like we do today. So the bedrooms were just the size for a bronze bed. Then it comes what is supposed to be a winter season living room. On the other side there was a winter season dining room, which was the main room of the house, this one. Because of course they collapsed on the way of the house. And then you can enjoy a nice perspective. All the personal belongings, the everyday objects of the people that lived here. The floor is original, but in English, this is not yet a mosaic floor. What you're looking at is a floor made up of marble scraps. So you remember, I told you that imported the marble slabs from other countries. So what did they do? They cut the marble slabs in order to pave or, for the facade of the main buildings. Then what did they do with the leftover? The floors, right. They didn't throw it away because it cost money. So the remnants of marble was recycled and they made this lovely floors. That's why, each marble tile has a different color and different size, because that is the red marble. So after that, we keep on walking along the main street, but as you can see, the main street continues on the other side, just to give you an idea of the extension of the town. So keeping on walking along that road, at the end of it, you make the arena where the gladiators games were held, okay? Just to show you how big Pompeii is. That's in the past. So this was not a courtyard, this was a gym. After a hot and cold bath, the people had a stroll in here and they did exercises. As you can see, the gym was around, the gymnasium was surrounded by a portico. You can see what were the roofs like. They were made up of wooden beams and terracotta tiles, and that's what we lost for good, because they collapsed under the weight of the ash. Then you can see that we have several sections. For example, you see the metal gangway under the portico to the left. That's the entrance of the women's section. On the other side, we have the men's section. So in other words, the men and women used to visit the same complex, but never together. They were separated. Into that big opening in the ground, there was what? As you can see on the book, an outdoor swimming pool. And there were 2 rooms both sides, which are now under restoration. In there were rocky benches. The people had to sit in the shade, relaxing themselves. Then into this building, we are going to see one of the plaster casts made by the archaeologists. Okay, I'm going to show you one of them. You know already that they were not to petrify not to mummify the ladies. Let me show you this picture. Have a look here. Which was the technique to make the molds of the people. You know that the town was totally buried in ash, okay? So also the bodies of the people that died were totally buried. Then what happened? As you can see here, a few years later, the flesh decomposed, but the body left in the meantime its shape in the hardened ashes, making what? Something like a gap, a cavity, an empty cavity, with bones left inside. During the excavation of a narrow road, some workers started to notice that there were gaps in the ground where bones could be seen. So Mr. Fiorelli, he was one of the most important directors we had in Pompeii. Just inspired by a stroke of genius, what did he do? He told to the workers, okay guys, let's inject liquid plaster into the gaps. The workers filled up the gaps completely, they waited the plaster to dry, and that's what they got, the molds of the people. So in other words, in the outside, they're made up of plaster. Inside, there are still today pieces of the bones. But you know what? We don't care about the bones. Why not? Because this technique was invented very late, only in the 1863. You know that Pompeii came to the light when? In 1748. So in more than 1 century, they found a lot of skeletons already. Nothing new under the sun. What's really special is that, thanks to this technique, you can see that lady in the exact position that she died. They made the molds of what was a real person like 2,000 years ago. In a bit, I'll show you what was this lady like. It's getting crowded. Let's go first into the Terme. Then we come back. Right? So in other words, of course, exactly for the terracotta bricks. Terracotta bricks in Rome, in the town. The other one of the town. And we go in a bit. It is not that large, but during our walk, I'll show you some of them. They look like mummified people, but they are absolutely. The piece that much, and this is so Pompeii was buried in this material, hot hash and hot lapilli. Okay, and the city was digged by hands. They couldn't use any kind of machines, otherwise they would have crushed, destroyed what was underneath. This is another thermopolium. The broken counter gives you the chance to see how large the pots were. Let's cross the road. So what were they for? The bad news is that unfortunately Pompeii was not fitted with a proper sewer system. So the city was like an open sewer. The owner of the house was the owner of the shops. How do we know that the Pompeii were the last owners? How do we know that? Because the streets, the gates, the houses were not named. So what happened? When that mansion came to the light, the archaeologists found in there not only the bedrooms, the living room, the garden, hot air by means of an oven. The hot air could pass in between the walls and underneath. So in other words, they invented something like a modern central heating system to heat well. because the temperature in the sauna was supposed to be 45 degrees Celsius, so more than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't imagine that we are in something like a country club. We are not. These are the public terme of the town. Everybody could visit them daily, included the people living above the shops. Actually, you know, for them, visiting the spa of the town was the only chance they had to clean themselves up. You remember the soccer pitch, the big houses? So all the rich people didn't need to visit the terme of the town. Why? Because they had their own, exactly. But this is what they did, that they used to do. They did love visiting the spa. Why? Because they could meet their friends, they socialized, they did their business. So together with the main square of the town, the public terme were one of the most important meeting places. That's people were found in this position. Which position? That were found prone on the ground. Why? Because they died for choking. So they fell on the ground. Because, you know, the ash, the buried Pompeii was very, very thin, like powder. So they breathed the ash. The lungs were burned up by the hot ash, the buried Pompeii. And of course, they found the skeletons of not only humans, but also domestic animals like horses, donkeys. If you want, you can take the best picture from here. But what about this place? So you can see in there's a pretty small room. What you're looking at this time is not a counter. That is a stone bed with a stone pillow. There was a lady employed in there. Okay, she was like self-employed. Okay, she had her own business. Up to the doorway, you can see something that still stick out of the wall. Okay, that is a very special sign that let you realize which business. Then you know already that back then the streets, the gates, the houses were not named, but the Romans named the brothel. The official name was Lupanare, L-U-P-A, Lupa was the prostitute's nickname. And the meaning is a she-wolf. Why? Because the ladies made a sound like this. Hoo-hoo. You know, maybe they stand by the entrance of the building, up to the cantilever, howling, whistling, you know, like a she-wolf, combining us. Here you can see the volcano. Mount Vesuvio is, by the way, still alive. It's in a dormant phase. And this is the picture of the last eruption. So the last eruption was when? In 1944. But the point is that this terrace is interesting. Why? Because from here you can see the depth of the excavated area. I told you that Pompeii was buried in tons and tons of volcanic debris, and the city was digged by hands. As I told you, they couldn't use any kind of machines. Why not? Because they would have crushed what was underneath. I have a question. What did we do with the ash?
Yeah, all the debris that you dug out.
You see where the street vendors are? That is not the original ground level. That square was 4 meters lower.
Oh, wow.
Which means that we filled
The ash.
yes.